Anybody here use Yelp?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. I'm on a Yelp boycott right now, so monsters. You'll hear about why in a second. But ever noticed how people usually use Yelp to tell either really great stories about their experience or really bad stories about their experience? That's what it is for me. I have 5 reviews on Yelp. My first Yelp review in 2010, the reason I signed up for it, was for Devil's Night Drive-In, a pop-up drive-in movie theater downtown, now closed, probably thanks to me. According to Yelp, 3 people found my review useful, 4 people found it funny, and 2 people found it cool, which makes me feel especially important. My review about Devil's Night Drive-In includes statements like, "We couldn't see poor Sam Jackson for most of the movie," and 3 girls on roller skates do not qualify as derby girls. It closes with the biting, "I was uninspired, to say the least." A more recent Yelp review is positive. Mac Enthusiast in 2014. It features lines, in all caps, like, "The people who work here are amazing, and I will only come here whenever I have computer trouble." So as you can see, I am an emotional Yelper. Then there's the Yelp review that triggered my current boycott, the subject of this story, a review of crispy crust pizza in Hollywood. You know it? Maybe. It reads, "Racist," in all caps. That's my style. "Accidentally parked in a spot that was only for the restaurant, was told I needed to move my car, and then someone from the store came out and glared at me while I backed up. Stood there until I left." Are you offended for me? Let's add some context. It was my birthday, this past November, 27, woo woo. I decided to treat myself to a little mani-pedi at Heavenly Nails, which is right next to Crispy Crust Pizza. I parked in their shared parking lot and noticed a sign that said Crispy Crust Takeout Only on a cone in front of one of the parking spaces. So I parked right next to the spot. You must really love pizza or something. I don't know what's going on. So this is directly in front of the salon. Turned out the salon was busy and they couldn't take me. Fine, way to ruin my birthday salon, but fine. But as I turned to leave, a Crispy Crust employee ran out of the store yelling, "You can't park there! You can't park there!" The signage did not indicate that this spot was also taken for takeout customers, but whatevs. I raised my hands in that "I'm just trying to live" way and continued the action of getting in my car. But then another man, this time a tall, buff white man, came out of Crispy Crust and stood right in front of my car. I figured he must be trying to get around to his car, so I waited, expecting him to move once he saw that I was letting him go, but he did not move. He stood right in front of me and my vehicle and folded his arms. Based on that last exchange with the angry employee, I immediately assumed that this too was a Crispy Crust employee who decided to finish the work of the other guy, maybe an owner or a manager making sure I left. But how could little old me cause so much trouble? I was leaving. I hadn't put up any sort of fight. Maybe he didn't trust me because I'm and have a... He assumed that I wouldn't follow the directions given me. A leap? Maybe. But not when you've been stared down in this way before. Not when this and this always seem to provoke suspicion at best, violence at worst. I got in my car, and the buff white man continued to stand there, arms folded, stoic. I looked directly at him and gave him the "can I help you" look. He didn't budge. I started to feel uncomfortable, threatened even. The thing is that these microaggressions, micro though they may be, still make my heart beat fast, my blood boil. Not only do I become angry, I become scared because I have no idea how this might escalate, where this might lead. When you're on the receiving end of racism and sexism on a regular basis, the question of what might be is almost as urgent as the question of what is. I drove away stunned, head spinning. Was this guy a Crispy Crust associate? Were the owners or managers racist white men like this guy seemed to be? The thought made me livid. I'd given them my money in the past. On the other hand, perhaps this man wasn't associated with Crispy Crust at all, but instead a customer who was afraid that I'd hit his car or something. Still likely racist and sexist, but not representative of the restaurant. But then I remembered the employee who yelled at me at first and thought it was all aggressive, it all made me uncomfortable, and it is all getting written about on Yelp. As soon as I arrived home, I fired off a quick and dirty rundown of my experience. Technically, everything about the review was true. Was I doing some mental math to make the claim that the Crispy Crust that I had just attended as an establishment was racist? Yeah. But, I mean, like, on some level, somehow, any white establishment is most likely a little racist because they're a part of the racist framework of our society. Am I right? It's important to note that this happened just weeks after the election of our current president. Generally, I was walking around the world just ready for someone to try me. Grocery shopping, looking at every old white man, most likely minding his own business, thinking, you want to go? This is no way to live. But I needed to vent. I needed to yell in the forums that allowed me to yell. I needed to drag any hint of hate through the mud. My family, everyone. My brother, my father. Yes. My mother's somewhere around here, or is she not? No, not today. Okay. And after I posted, I felt better and pretty much forgot about it until a few days later when I received an email from Yelp headquarters. It read, we wanted to let you know that we've removed your review of Crispy Crust. Your review was brought to our attention by the Yelp community, and we found that it fell outside of our content guidelines because it largely pertained to matters outside of a typical consumer experience. Thanks for understanding, and we'll see you on Yelp. It largely pertained to matters outside of a typical consumer experience? I reread the email a few times just to make sure that this was truly happening. By the third read, I was hot. Call an establishment racist and it's outside of a typical consumer experience. I didn't care what the content guidelines were. This was censorship. The anger welled up again and I crafted an email right back to Yelp headquarters. Hello. Please explain how parking in front of the store is outside of the typical consumer experience. I will post this again, and if it's taken down again, I'll post on social media about Yelp silencing folks of color. I sent it off, feeling high and mighty. I reposted the review and then immediately questioned if I had any leg to stand on. So I reached out to my dad. Am I being petty? I asked. My father, who I consider to be one of the wisest and smartest people I know, responded, LOL! The threat does seem to outweigh the significance of the event. Still, in principle, you're right on target. Yelp's action is tantamount to silencing people of color. Maybe you've helped them recognize that. Angel face emoji! Yeah, Yelp, shove it. But I hadn't helped them recognize a thing because just a day later, I received another email from Yelp headquarters. It began with, we've removed your review of Crispy Crust. And then it was the exact same email, citing typical consumer experiences. Oh, you don't know how hot I was then. How dare they not only remove it again, but not answer my question and send me the same email. It was time to follow up on my promise. I would drag them publicly on social media. All of my Twitter followers would be hearing about this. I have 249 Twitter followers. At the time, I think I had 197. By no means would I say that I have a noteworthy social media presence. When my Facebook posts get more than 100 likes, I feel like Beyonce. I had no real faith in, my tweet going viral, but I knew that at the same time, if ever a public was ready to retweet or repost something shaming corporate America for participating in the oppression of minorities, it would be now. So I posted a screenshot of the Yelp email on Twitter and Facebook with the following caption. Shame on Yelp, tag. Deleting a review of a restaurant where I called out experiencing racism because it's outside the typical consumer experience. Shouldn't other folks of color be warned about businesses where they might feel unsafe? Seconds after posting, I started getting likes, angry faces, and wow faces. The comments began to roll in. On Twitter, 5 minutes after I tweeted, Heather Matarazzo retweeted my tweet, and that alone made me feel like Beyonce. This is not actually a story about how this Yelp post and tweet went viral, and now I'm known in the nation as an advocate for human rights. But my tweet got 24 retweets and 21 likes, which for me made me feel very exposed. And my Facebook post was flooded with comments, many from people who I'd not spoken with in years. For a total of 0 seconds, did I consider that people would be so interested in Crispy Crust as the perpetrator of the racist act, and that they would want to read the horrors of the review that Yelp so nastily prevented me from expressing. Post a review, was the cry on Facebook and Twitter. The world needs to know. People literally tweeted that. Did they need to know? I was over the Crispy Crust incident, and as we've discussed, was unsure of how valid my proclamation actually was. I was too embarrassed to post my original over-emotional review. It seemed impossible to justify my bold statement about Crispy Crust in 140 characters. How could I put everyone in my shoes on that day in the reply section on Facebook? So instead I gave a summary. My review told a story of being aggressively yelled at by an employee, followed and then watched after parking. My problem is less with Crispy Crust, but mostly with Yelp for censoring my experience. This statement received far less likes, comments, and retweets, but it was my truth, and yet I still felt like I was being cowardly and petty. Had I been wrong to post on Yelp in the first place? Dragging Crispy Crust without all the facts? Did the facts matter here? Was I letting down my fellow advocates for social justice by not posting my review? I felt like vomiting as I watched any credibility I had in calling out racism and sexism vanish. So I reached out to an activist friend. She's an artist and a longtime organizer. We were meeting for a dance fitness class that evening, thank God. Not the first time I've been saved by cardio Latin, let me tell you. I spilled the whole story, starting with Crispy Crust. Was I wrong? Was I cowardly? Was I dumb? Erica, surprise, she's here! Right over there! Smiled. No, I was speaking my truth at the time. And even if that's not what people want to hear, even if they're on your side, your truth is enough, she told me. I took a breath. Relief. This had been the theme all along. I realized my truth, my perspective, these cannot be argued. Might I have been wrong about the Crispy Crust fellow? Sure, but that doesn't change the fact that I felt threatened by him. Should I have posted the Yelp email without more context? Probably not, but I still stand by the fact that Yelp censored me. By the next day, my newsfeed had calmed down and things seemed back to normal, thank God. I learned something important. I don't ever want to be Beyonce. Even a taste of the public needing a statement from me was overwhelming. But most importantly, I learned that before I type or post, I should take a breath, check my anger and emotions, consider the consequences of my words, and then, and only then, should I continue with any statement on the internet, or really IRL too. And with this check, I will continue to speak my truth and make my voice heard, especially in these times. So Yelp, shove it! Crispy Crust, I don't know about you, but you'll never see me again. For my 249 followers on Twitter, I have to save face. Thank you.